disciplined people performing disciplined thought and executing disciplined action.
Welcome back to the Winners Find a Way show. I'm your host, Trent Clark. This is episode 21 with Brad Stevens, part 2 of 2, the Entrepreneur Whisperer. Brad is of Atlanta, Georgia. Been an asset to so many business owners and executives. You will want to listen to all the show for all the nuggets. He's a fabulous speaker, a good friend, an entrepreneur organization member. He shares more on his entrepreneurial experience and systems that have helped build business growth and success at every businesses he has touched. You will not want to miss us discuss his self-discipline, power of leveraging and networking, relationship building, and his morning routine. I love his quote, leverage your network, lean into your network, and the relationships. Brad Stevens is a fabulous influencer of others, and you will not want to miss part 2 of 2 of the Winners Find a Way show, episode 21, the Entrepreneur Whisperer. What's the one value that you would tell people to stay to? What do you have to stay true to in that situation?
And again, I mean, I don't think it's any kind of magic. It's just being relentlessly determined to get on the other side. It comes back to that discipline and grit. I mean, there's people that hit adversity and they go down with it, and there's people that hit it and they find a way to get through on the other side. And so I don't know if there's any particularly magical, here's a special extra neat value that you got to have to get through a challenge. I just think it starts with discipline, because discipline ultimately addresses both the positive times and the negative times that you deal with. And just kind of relentless determination to get, on the other side. I mean, I've absolutely been in that place multiple times where I was going down a path, even with this business I'm currently in, before I launched the whole having our own VA and providing our own VA services. I was doing a bunch of consulting and advisory for a number of years, and it was just one-off project-based type of work. I get paid a fee to come in and spend 4 hours with the management team and tell them what all their constraints were. But there was no recurring revenue aspect to it, right? And I had to go find the next project, the next opportunity. And it just got very, very taxing. It was just like, this isn't where I want to be. And everybody kept telling me, Brad, why don't you just launch your own outsourcing operation? Like, I mean, you can have recurring revenue. I'm like, man, I got to go to another country. I got to figure out how to incorporate. I got to go, trust a bunch of people, build a whole management team. Like, I was like, but you know what? And I tell you too, when you get married and you have a family and you have children, right? You got other things to win for besides yourself. And I think when you get into that place as well, that you've got another set of folks that you're fighting for, aside from just yourself. And, I was in that place and I just wasn't happy with kind of where it was going. And I wasn't one to go, find the next one-off types of projects and so forth. I mean, we would refer people to folks that we had vetted, but it just wasn't creating a recurring kind of component. And so I said, whatever, we're going to do it. And I'm just going to trust that I got the right people and that we can kind of make it happen. I had no idea what I was doing. I never launched a company in another country or dealt with any of the circumstances we've navigated. But I went to the Philippines. I found a guy. I went and one thing I would tell people to share a specific value is leverage your network. Lean into your network and relationships. Don't deal with your problem and your challenge on your own. Leverage, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's your personal group. That's one thing that's amazing about being a part of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, that we're a part of. We have a global Slack channel that has 8,000 members on it. And if I post a question of anything I'm dealing with, within inside of 30 minutes, I've got 20 responses from other entrepreneurs that have been there and helping me out with it. So, one value I would say specific, aside from determination and relentless kind of commitment, is the ability to lean on others, drop pride, and put your challenge out there. You'd be amazed in your network and your relationships. And when I was up against the wall before I launched this business, that's what I did. I put out my network, and I found a guy that was an EO Australia member that was an expert in helping people launch businesses in the Philippines. And if I'd never taken the time to look for that, he ended up responding. And I flew over there and he took me on a tour of 20 facilities in 5 days. A very unique niche experience that I wouldn't have found otherwise. And that's what translated into me wanting to build and grow our so don't live in it on your own. Definitely lean on, and if you're younger, you may not have as big of a network and relationship, but reach out to others that are older than you, right? Your parents, your friends, uncles, family, people that can help you with that path. You never know what you're going to stumble upon, but you got to be able to be willing to drop your pride to do that a lot of times.
Well, I think that's a great tip for people. And when things are down, people are embarrassed of their situation. They're hurt. They feel shame. They feel all these things. And I'm always astounded. I had a very tough event happen, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I was just happened to be at an EO event in San Diego at the time. And, I got to go on stage here in 90 minutes. And I get a call that was, devastating to me from a friend. And I couldn't, it was hard challenge to be faced with right at the moment. And I leaned on a friend, not a close friend, but a friend in the organization, and just kind of shared. And they immediately could identify they'd had similar challenges. And I thought, I'm the only idiot that could be so dumb to be facing this challenge. Like the whole shame cycle's working on me of how stupid I must be and all these things, right? And then you start talking to people like, oh my gosh, lots of people in business have gone through things like this. And I'm reminded of people sharing a woman who shares, oh, I've had a miscarriage. And then you find out in your network, wow, 10 of the other moms in my network, 4 of them have also had miscarriages. Like people just don't talk about these things. But if you ask and you share and you have relationship, it's my biggest concern, I think, with the young generation is that I don't know if they're building those networks and relationships like you and I did at our age. And because we were doing business and vendors, and it was always relations were huge to our success in those early companies, of course. And so I see kids, because of the phone, the technology, the kind of solidarity of it all. I'm concerned for that. Do you see that?
Yeah. I mean, it's I think you've actually helped me find the answer to the question of what would I do differently? And there is one thing that I would definitely is in my early 20s is I would have been much, much more intentional about the relationship building that I was doing. At that point when I would meet people, it was like, for whatever it was, whether it's business or personal, otherwise, I wasn't ever very intentional about building that relationship, taking that business card and sending them an email or a follow-up afterwards of, hey, it's great to connect. I mean, in today's world, connecting on LinkedIn and following and so forth. Because that's one thing that I've realized. I probably didn't start that and actually when I joined EO was kind of the first time. All throughout my 20s, it was just me and a business partner, and we were banging our heads against the wall trying to solve problems. And I didn't really reach out to any kind of business or organizational network. In my early 30s is when I kind of got involved with EO and some other types of organizations. But that is something that 100% I would tell any young people, and I would do myself, that would have given me a lot more strength to navigate some of the challenges. If I had, I'm sitting on a plane beside somebody, right? My early 20s self, I meet, some guy that's like a VP of sales for a big organization. My early 20s self, oh, that was cool to meet that guy. My 41-year-old self, absolutely. Let's connect. Here's my card. Follow up. Send them an email afterwards. Great meeting you. Let's stay in touch. Connect on LinkedIn. Send them maybe even a handwritten letter, possibly. It's a whole different value system of what I've known. Now that network is like a safety net, right? That weave of network and relationships is almost. That's why even the software company we're doing, Jason, who's my partner in that, we were talking, and that's kind of the value of it. We launched this thing was, you got members of an organization, even like an EO organization that don't even know each other, right? There's some that know each other, but don't. And so this software does like these one-on-one collisions and intros everybody via email. And it's like thickening the weave of the basket of that relationship. And if everybody in their life can think about that, think about the people in your life as nodes on a network. How connected are you and how thick is that weave? Because when you do have a setback or a challenge, it's a safety weave net you can fall on with those people, those relationships, those experiences.
But that really, paints a picture, right? If I have lots of gaps in my net, I may fall through my catch net, right? Like my catch net really might not work. But if my network is tight and I've got this deeply woven net, like I'm ready to walk the high wire. Like what's going to happen? I got a net here, man. I mean, I'm not too worried about it. And if I make it across the high wire, it's worth millions, right? But if I fall, I'll go back and start over because the net will catch me, right? I think there's a lot of strength in that, man. That's big. Talk to me quickly about the tough challenge of being a young father with these children, running and then running all the business and the balance, and how do you do it? Being a good husband, being a good father. You're going at 100 miles an hour. Talk to me how you do that well.
Well, I tell you, it's back to the original question we talked about as far as what's one of the biggest things that's made a big difference in my life, and putting, that EOS framework, getting the right management infrastructure in place that got me out of the day-to-day and the detail of everything. Also freed up my time, tremendously as well. And also my stress level about things. Like, I don't know of every single bump that happens in the business, right? As I just transfer that to kind of the management team, and I focused on leadership and development of the strategy. And that's had a huge impact of the home life side of things, as well. As far as my approach to it, and growing up in an entrepreneurial environment, seeing a lot of other entrepreneurs and so forth, is that they focus on the big wins for their family. They're like, look, I've got to work 90 hours a week so that we can go do this big, European vacation. And I got to do all this, and we're gonna do these big things. And most people's children or spouses are like, look, I just want the little wins from you along the way, right? The random flowers that you show up, making sure you're there to read books at night for me when I'm going to bed and so forth. So I've really taken that to heart. And fortunately, my business is virtual, so I get to work from home for the most part. And this is my home office situation here. And so come 5:00, probably 90% of the time, I'm walking down those stairs and I'm a part of dinner every morning. I'm usually making breakfast for our family usually. I've just chosen that, particularly the first 10 to 12 years of your children's life is where the biggest impression happens. A lot of things start getting hard coded at 12 to 13 years beyond, and just trying to be as present, intentional as I can. And having a business that allows for the virtual flexibility, and those mornings, those evenings, and just being as efficient with my time and structure as I can, so I can be committed and focused. I know you're in Michigan. We were actually up not too long ago and visiting, and you and I were trying to connect up. And that early morning when we go on vacation, we were 18 days that we were in Michigan, and I took one phone call during that entire time. Not 18, we were 15 and 3 days at my parents afterwards. But I get up at 5:30 before everybody else is up. And that gives me an hour of time to kind of deal with any kind of pressing needs and so forth. And then as soon as the kids are up, I'm there and I'm present the whole rest of the day. We just went to Disney for 7 days. I didn't work the entire time, except for those early mornings. I get up and I'm able to kind of get things knocked out. So, some people just can't be morning people. They're just not. They can't make it happen. For me, it's been a huge part of what's allowed me to be successful and then also have the family flexibility, having that early morning.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Disney. You and I built our relationship at Disney. I knew Brad Stevens pretty well, right? I'd heard of Brad, knew him through a little bit through the entrepreneur organization, but then you and I ended up just by chance on a behind the scene Disney tour together and spent a half day with, Walt and the boys, not really Walt, but everyone there. And it was fabulous, right? It was a great experience, but probably I'll take away most from that trip, which is great, seeing how Disney does things. But probably most of it was, building our relationship. I thought that was really great. So
that was our last event before COVID hit, I think.
Oh, that was.
We were both down at a podcasting expo, and it was the last in-person event that I went to before COVID hit. So
yeah, that's right. Speaking in Orlando. Oh yeah. Right. So when you think about that, I think this discipline this morning is very important. I've heard a lot of people tell me, Trent, I don't know if I can do it. I'm a pretty big night owl. Like, being a disciplined person in the morning is actually being a disciplined person in the evening. It's about putting your body down, because waking up at 5:00 isn't bad. If you're in bed at 9:30, that's not bad at all. The problem is if you're up at 1:00 in the morning, 5:00 is an early wake up call. You're not going to be at your best by 1 p.m. because you've already got in, these hours, and you're running on 3-4 hours sleep. And so for me, we're back to self-discipline. Do you have the discipline to walk this line? Are you up watching the games late, or can you just watch the 7-minute highlights the next day? It's so beautiful now that everything's in a highlight in 3.5 minutes, right? Hey, I'd love to catch the Braves game. And last week I interviewed Bobby Magianis, right, who is
nice.
Atlanta Braves baseball coach. He's a hitting coach for them, and Bobby was fabulous, just talking about a couple of really just interesting things. And so, but that discipline is a big one. Let me ask you, you've had a lot of success You've won many games, many battles you've won. What's the best battle that you've conquered in your lifetime?
I'll tell you that one I shared about the disaster we had with our last business is probably right up there. That was a big mess, and ironically enough, in that business as well. In parallel to having all those products grow up, we had two different businesses. We had a dental division we were servicing and a beauty division we were serving, a bunch of spas and salons and dentists. And a bunch of the dentists started suing the spas and salons for what they felt was practicing dentistry without a license. In addition to that, we were dealing with lawsuits all over the place throughout the country. So that was a double doozy during that time frame. I'd say kind of getting the guts, I guess, to make the first step in this entrepreneurial kind of direction after coming out of college. I mean, I graduated college, had an offer with a company in Atlanta. I was going to come work full time. Had a lot of student debt that I needed to take care of and pay. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to start, I was actually going to do investment banking in Atlanta with a company, and I knew that wasn't going to be my long-term path. I was going to do something entrepreneurial. But 2 weeks before I was supposed to start, they ended up going under. So I got a notice in the mail and said that Robertson Stevens, no relation to me, but PH Stevens, they had gotten shut down. They were big in the tech sector. This is 2002. They had taken E-Trade public, really involved, and Fleet Bank that owned them ended up shutting them down. And it took the entire office by surprise and had no idea that was kind of going to happen. So I'd already committed to these guys like 9 months prior, even before I'd graduated. Got a signing bonus, and it's funny. I got to keep my signing bonus, and I got 3 months severance pay, and never worked a day for the company. So I was like
a lottery ticket. Like, could you just go apply all that money right onto your debt and take another job for college? It's crazy. That's awesome.
But that was a big fork in the road path for me.
Yeah.
I'd already gotten an apartment up in Buckhead in Atlanta. I was going to be living with another young guy. We were going to be young and single and making great investment banking money as a 21 or 22-year-old. And, once that came, it was a major kind of life decision to say, all right, I always want to do this entrepreneurial thing. And so my uncle, who was a doctor, had been telling me about this idea of helping low-income people qualify for free medications and, working with cross-border pharmacies in Canada. And so I kind of had that on the table. I was like, well, and I had some other job offers I could have taken, but I tucked my tail. I canceled, lost a month's deposit with a guy up in Buckhead, moved back in with my parents into a bedroom in the house, living with my parents, and made the decision to launch my first business. And literally in a room about half this size, in that business, we helped low-income people qualify for free medications. We ended up launching and had my mom, my grandmother, my aunt all within 2-3 feet of each other, all on computers. And I got my whole family, and I said, hey, I need your guys to help me launch this company. And so they would sit there and answer, phone calls, and that's how we kind of got that business off the ground. But that's one of the biggest. I remember sitting and having to make that decision. Am I going to go ahead and go down this path, or I've got these other offers? I can go work for some other companies, guaranteed money, or go ahead and do this entrepreneurial path. And I did, and I've never looked back. That's all I've done in the last 20 years.
What do you think? What do you think gave you the courage?
I think growing up and seeing an entrepreneurial kind of environment, even though one that had struggled and had some, challenges associated with it. But having my parents honestly there to support me. My mom was one of my first employees and was right there beside me and to support and help me. And I knew my dad had tons of experience and knowledge, and knew that he would be right there to provide guidance and support for me right out of the gate. So I think I've always had an amazingly supportive family growing up, and we've always had each other's back and have been there. And so making that decision to stay at home and have the help and support there, knowing that they had my back, was something that helped make it happen.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, I know that when you talked about perseverance, Bobby and I, this coach, right? He and I talked about the fact that he didn't have a plan B, right? Like he's got, I think he's been in pro baseball for 30 years now, but he didn't have a plan B, and he kind of beats himself up. But now he's a guy who's over 50 who received his master's in performance psychology at the age of 50, right? Like this guy, and that's courage, right? To go back and go do your schooling at, in your 40s. And so pretty cool. But some of that perseverance and some of that grit to me was that there was no fallback. Like there is, when you say, hey, you just got to go do it, and there's no opportunity for you. Hey, there's no other option I have. And part of that is like, you don't have a right or a left. You've only got to go forward. So you better find a way to get around, get through, get under, get over, but you got to find a way.
Yeah, no, it's, and sometimes giving yourself that ultimatum, the whole burn the ship story of, that just, as cliche as it is, it's really the decision you got to do. You give yourself no other path. Most human beings are capable. All human beings are capable of, what's the stat? 80% more than we actually try and take advantage of. Our brain and what we're capable of doing, we tap a fraction of it.
Yes.
And it's just those people that make that choice to do it or not. And sometimes it requires putting yourself in an ultimatum situation. And that'll what kind of spark the change.
All right. Let me, last question before we go to a couple things. You've worked with a lot of people. You've consulted a lot of people. When they look inside the mirror, I think people miss things about themselves. Like you said, hey, you got so much more brain capacity to tap. You have so much more ability. We're only using 20% of our capability. There's lots more potential in there. What do you see when you look at them that they might not see themselves in the mirror? What are they missing?
I'd say some similar things that I kind of went on in my own journey, and kind of what I share in our current business, and kind of inspiring people to really delegate and get outside of the day-to-day detail of their operations. I see that they're missing that they can let go of the reins, that have trust in other people to perform and deliver. And it's this thing I call kind of an 85% rule. There's a lot of things that are getting done in my business that, look, if I was micromanaging every single moment and so forth, yes, would everything be 100% perfect? But we'd also be about 1/10 of our size, right? If things can get 85 to 90% of the way there, that I would personally do it, and the job gets done and we move down the road, then it's a win. And having that comfort level to just, so many entrepreneurs hold on to the reins so damn tight. It's like, I've got to control everything, every single thing that does, right? Every single blog that goes out, I got to have every single wordsmith, every single word that goes on. I got to make every single decision. And I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs that have tinkered with the idea of outsourcing and VAs and exploring that, but are just fearful of letting go of control, or even their staff and their managers. It's like, no, we're the only ones that can do it. There's no way possible anybody could do it as good as we do. But they go down the path and they start just letting go of the reins some and establish confidence. And they find all of a sudden that it can be done, that they can relinquish. They can, what I call, automate and delegate, right? If you're going to scale, you have to automate and delegate at some point. Like there's a very video testimony on our website. Rob Shotwell and his wife have a video production company in New Jersey, and they share in there that for years, the two of them were living in the business, the old E-Myth, right? They were living in it. They hadn't even taken a vacation in like numbers and numbers of years. And it always talked about this idea of getting other people involved and delegating. And once they finally took the step and made the mindset shift, now they've got 2, maybe I think 3 VAs that they're looking to kind of bring on, that's now changed their whole mindset and how they're kind of growing, but not just outsourcing and VAs, but just a whole mindset of relinquishing that control. So I think they're missing in the mirror that they can have other people run their business. They can be financially successful. They can win without having to control every single move.
It's awesome. All right, let's finish with this. That's so good. First of all, thank you, Brad. I know our listeners see value in the episode today. I enjoyed learning about all of it, man. Collins is Max. I can't wait to go check that out. For you, just, talking about the discipline that you bring every day, talking about how important it is those first 2 hours of the morning, what you get value out of that. That's a huge, huge takeaway for me. For the people, it's time real quick for the best way to win. Is there something that you want to share with the listeners that we did not touch on today? Is there something that we've missed maybe in all of it that we'd want to share with somebody?
Oh man, we covered a lot of different nuggets and elements. I think something I'd share with everybody to do an exercise we did recently, actually part of my forum and entrepreneurs organization. We we took a retreat. So we take 2 retreats per year. We meet monthly for 4 hours per month within our forum. And then we have 2 retreats per year. And one's usually a flyaway, one's a local. And this past year we went to Colorado, and we had an extra fellow EO member named Finney Kelly, former president for Colorado, has this whole program called the Intentionality Compass. And it's a whole exercise to really just come to terms with what your purpose is, what your kind of core values are. And most of us have a general idea. We've talked about it and so forth, but really haven't taken the time to do it. And about 3 weeks before we went out on this, he gave us a workbook to go through and to really answer those hard questions for ourselves that I hadn't taken the time to do. And sit in that chair right there. And I took that hour and a half, usually most mornings, and I sat there with my iPad and my good notes and just sat there and cranked out. And it was so helpful to take the time, blocking out everything else, and just think about, what is my individual purpose statement? What are my individual core values that I want to live by? And for people that haven't taken the time to really do that, and you check it out. I think he's got the guide on us. If you go to intentionalitycompass, I think .com. But just to really sit down and come to terms with that, and to kind of, what is your guide? And we have it for our companies, right? We have our company mission statements, our core values, so on and so forth. And, and for me, I mean, it was just helping individuals realize their potential. Just as when I really looked and reflected on a lot of what my behavior is, how I've interacted with people, where I've added value in my life, where I seek value, is I love seeing people really achieve what they're truly capable of. And I cannot stand things that aren't optimized. I mean, I just, whether it's brushing your teeth or launching a business, like, there's an efficient way to do things. So I would just encourage anybody we haven't talked about today is just sit down, take some time, and really come up with a couple of sentence purpose statement and personal core values that go along with your business that really kind of put you in touch with yourself.
That's great. That's great. All right. Brad, tell them again where they can find you.
Sure. If you want to check out our business and kind of what we do, outsourceaccess.com. We kind of explore the whole outsourcing VA world. There's a video right there on our site where I kind of take you behind the scenes in the Philippines and share this whole world. I'm huge on education, whether you end up using us or not. I love to educate people about this whole space. And there's some educational webinars and stuff that I do on there. And then bradstevenstraining.com. I do a ton of speaking globally on the topic of redefining how you scale, how to automate and delegate with VAs and easy tech tools. If anybody here is a part of an organization or a business group that you're looking for someone to speak on that topic, that's very practical, case study driven, bradstevenstraining.com. You can kind of check that out, and just look me up, Brad Stevens on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you and exchange and see some of the content we're pushing out there. And automatedelegate.com is our podcast. It's short, 25 to 30 minute podcast where we do nothing but drill in, and I have people give me specific examples of what they're doing to automate and delegate in their life. And so check that out.
I'm going to check that out too. Next thing I'm going to ask you, last thing, is your quote, your go-to kind of quote, verse. Do you have something that you're well read? I know you read a lot. So do you have a go-to quote? So I'm going to have you think about that, because I got a go-to for today. I have always quote of the week. So for everybody else, follow us on YouTube Live, follow us on LinkedIn. We go live with this every week. Follow us on the Leadershipity channel, the YouTube channel. We are on Instagram, Twitter at either Leadershipity or Trent M. Clark. You can find us there, Facebook, Trent M. Clark, or the Leadershipity page. I'm all over LinkedIn. That's probably our biggest framework there. And of course, leadershipity.com. Make sure you're looking for our upcoming book, The Pyramid of Leadershipity, Accountability for Leaders. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please continue listening and rate us. Winners Find a Way, 5 stars. Subscribe to the show. Work hard to find value-driving stories from the 1% leaders for each and every episode. Of course, Brad Stevens delivered just like every one of our people, and it's just awesome to hear your perception, man, and hear your quotes. Your automate delegate is so good. I subscribe to your Monday morning. Give us your email for Monday morning for everybody. The tool, addictive tool.
Oh, the addictive tool series. Yeah. So, yeah, if anybody here is interested, and I've got a whole set of tools and resources. If you send an email to tools, TOOLS at outsourceaccess.com, and just put Leadershipity in the subject line. You don't have to write a message to us or anything. Just send it to tools at Outsource Access, put Leadershipity in the subject line. And as you can imagine, that goes to a VA that I have, and we'll shoot out to you. We have a thing called our addictive tool series. It's a once a week, just cool, tech tool or resource that maybe you'd never heard of before. We don't have to send you a ton of stuff. It's just one tool once a week. Cool tools like, Screencast-O-Matic that lets you screencast recording, tools like Thankster.com that do automated handwritten letters from a mobile app. So just some kind of neat tools are out there. But yeah, if you send an email to that and put Leadershipity in the subject line, we'll shoot you that and a list of other tools and resources that may be helpful.
What's your go-to quote, Brad? The things are down, but this can level you, ground you, set you in your foundation right away.
For me, it's very straightforward. And this is actually, I was actually salutatorian in my high school. And when I had to do a speech, I did two things. I actually referenced this quote and I sang a song, which I couldn't believe that I actually did, but I asked him if I could. And it's The Man in the Arena. Theodore Roosevelt is just one of my favorite absolute go-tos. It represents a lot of everything that we talked about today. It's not the critic who counts. It's the man in the arena that, at the end may realize high achievement, but at the worst that they fail while daring greatly, that their place shall never be among those timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat because they didn't put themselves in the arena and give themselves opportunity. So I absolutely love that quote. I reference it a ton.
Yes.
And then The River by Garth Brooks. Anybody's never listened to that song, the lyrics, that's one that for my graduation was one that I was passionate about. But the words of that song, just again, I think just describes the world of entrepreneurship, that no matter what battle you're navigate, you're going to run the river until it runs dry and find a path. There'll be rough waters and storms, but if you stay the course, you can get on the other side.
We got some great references today. Like in my notes, I'm gonna have references to so many people, so many things. I love it's the critic thing. I love that the man in the arena. I love it. I actually have it sitting here on my wall, right? Like it's powerful. Brene Brown probably really brought it to light because in her book, Daring Greatly, she named her book after a quote in that of Daring Greatly. And it's a fabulous book, by the way. Just another name drop reference right there. Another great book, Daring Greatly. For me, I spend every week thinking about my guests for the week. We know in advance, obviously, who's coming on. So, and Brad, in our relationship, I went to a Bible verse for you, 2 Timothy 1:7. God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. And that's exactly what I was thinking of when I thought of Brad Stevens this week. That came to me, and I let the Lord kind of guide that for me. And that immediately just, wow, I thought, man, does that give me Brad Stevens? There is nothing to be scared of in this world. Like, it does not serve you. There's fear, and I get it. And, but being scared and timid has never served. And man, when I think about power, love, and self-discipline, you came just straight out, like jumped off the page at me. So it was powerful for me. And so thank you so much for coming aboard, man.
Oh, it's very kind of you, man. That's very, very humbling to have that shared. I appreciate it. It's been a great experience, and I've had plenty of takeaways here. I mean, I love, too, the way you rephrased. We don't talk about problems. We talk about challenges. And I'm actually going to have a note here. I'm going to mention that to my team going forward. That's how we're going to rephrase our vocabulary on that one in particular. But it's been great. Thanks for the shares and the experience as well on your end.
For everyone, Brad Stevens on the Winners Find a Way show. Thank you for joining with us. See us every Friday, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific on all the networks. We go live. Thank you for joining us for another Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. If you love this episode, share this episode with your friends and follow us on whatever podcasting medium you're listening to. If you want more content from us, join us at leadershipity.com or the Leadershipity YouTube channel. You can find us on all the social media networks at either Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. For our award-winning workshop, Win with Great Teams, you can find that page on LinkedIn as well as our corporate page, Leadershipity. If you want to win more, it starts with you today. Say it with me now. I have what it takes.